Coming up on Carolina Week, Hurricane Milton is making its way to Florida.
Starting like this week on Monday, we would need one card access to enter the building.
How new security measures are confusing students.
Participating in politics was fun.
And how one man's campaign button collection is preserving political history.
Carolina's campus and community. This is Carolina Week.
Welcome to Carolina Week. I'm Isha Patanaik. Our top story this morning, the next monster hurricane headed straight for Florida. Milton is a Category 4 headed straight to Tampa Bay. It's expected to make landfall tomorrow, only weeks after Helen brought devastation from there all the way to our state.
Milton is a developing story. We will have more on the weather in just a minute, so stick with us. Another top story is campus security, which is fresh on the minds of many students, as some buildings have seen heightened law enforcement presence and security measures this week. Our own Samantha Hoffman is live from the Quad, where a police presence is setting up in response to potential protests. What are you seeing, Samantha?
Anna Cater, I'm definitely seeing some action picking up more now. I've been here for 2 hours outside Wilson and seen 3 police officers come through. There's 3 key scenes I want to show you here. First, we got Wilson Library, students sitting outside of there. If they want to go into that building today, they are going to need their one card, physical or digital. We tried getting in the buildings, they are locked, but this week you are going to need a one card to get in. Now, just across the street here, we have some faculty and students who are assembling for a rally expected at 3 p.m. with Students for Justice for Palestine. We spoke with an English professor as part of this protest, and she said she doesn't really know what to expect right now. As you can see, the crowd has started to grow and they are assembling some sort of structure here. So there's definitely a sign that there might be something happening today, people speaking out. Now, if that's not a sign, we also have a physical sign over here. We have seen these all around the Quad. Notice of restrictions. Take a note right here of number 9, do not throw any objects. Number 10, do not damage or deface any public property. Now, we do know that there was some vandalism to campus buildings about a month ago. So we are definitely seeing more and more added security measures. The university is not telling us why. I'm going to step out of the way here as you get a better look at this so far. What we know so far, the university sent an email saying that buildings facing the Quad and libraries are going to require a one card to enter. We also know that this week marks the 1-year anniversary of Hamas's attack on Israel, something that we know last spring was a lots of rallies on campus. Now, we spoke with students and they say they are frustrated with some of these added security measures this week.
We were talking about this today in my anthropology class, and my teacher teaches over an alumni, and he had no idea because that building was not subject to the lockdowns. So there are people on other parts of the campus who have no idea that this is happening.
As of now, the university says that these closures are going to end at the end of this week. Back to you, Anna Cater.
Thank you, Samantha. These security measures aren't the only place students are wondering whether they'll need their one card or not.
Yeah, students will also need a form of ID at the polls, and you need a physical copy since digital ones will not be accepted. The North Carolina Court of Appeals ruled that UNC digital IDs cannot be used as voter ID last month. This overturns the original rule that allowed students to use their digital IDs to vote. UNC first years were only provided digital IDs this year, but the UNC One Card office is now providing physical IDs on the 3rd floor of the student stores.
That's important to consider since we're just 27 days away from the presidential election. With all the attention on colleges' campuses, it's clear that young voters could be a deciding factor in the election. Our reporter Landon Job tells us what motivating the decisions of these young voters.
Early voting starts October 17th. 1 week left.
Jean Langley is part of the nonpartisan organization You Can Vote. She talks to students about top elections and the ones down ballot. She says she likes to stand and shout for the 3 hours she is on campus trying to register students.
I'm hoping that the work I'm doing will help start young voters voting and have them continue to vote every single election.
Young voters like UNC sophomore Joseph Wariova says voting is a constitutional responsibility.
People got to get involved, understand what's going on, understand what's at stake, and then use their knowledge of policy or interpretation of what somebody's putting forth as policy to determine what suits them.
Vote here on campus.
Langley has spent the last 16 years registering voters. She has observed patterns among young voters at a dozen college campuses across the state.
The number of women voting, registering to vote, is so much greater than the number of men on this campus.
According to the 2024 Harvard Youth Poll, 56% of young Americans say they plan to vote in the upcoming election. The poll showed that 74% support capping prescription drug prices and 59% support legalizing abortion. Gerard Millman is part of that 56%. His voting is his one voice.
Is because how the political structure works in the Supreme Court, in legislation, in the executive court, how the entire government operation works. My say in it is my vote.
Langley says she's registered 70 new voters on UNC's campus so far.
I hope that the students of UNC keep looking down ballot, because there are races that will impact them while they're here. There are judges, there are the legislative races.
Races that could all be determined by young voters if they vote. In Chapel Hill, I'm Landon Jobe, Carolina Week.
The 2024 Harvard poll shows Harris leading Trump 64 to 32% among likely youth voters.
Well, just a reminder, the deadline to register to vote is Friday at 5 p.m. If you have not already, make sure you've registered to vote. Here are some of the key dates for voting this election. Most importantly, make sure you are registered to vote by Friday, October 11th. That is the deadline. You can register by mail postmarked by October 11th or online or in person through the DMV. To register in North Carolina, you need to be a U.S. citizen over 18 years old, have some form of government ID, a legal name, date of birth, address, and a signature. Again, UNC students can use their physical one card as identification to vote, but not their virtual one card. If you plan on absentee voting, make sure you request your ballot by October 29th at 5 p.m. to be ready for the election on November 5th. Again, you need a photo ID to vote in North Carolina.
Voting will look a little different for those in Western North Carolina, but elected officials are working to ensure voters can still cast their ballot. The North Carolina Board of Elections has taken emergency measures to adopt 13 resolutions for counties in Western North Carolina affected by Hurricane Helene. Resolutions include extending early voting dates and times, creating accessible Election Day polling places, appointing more poll workers, and extending the deadline to accept hand-delivered or mail absentee ballots until 7:30 p.m. on Election Day. The board feels confident these resolutions will help the election proceed with the most normalcy.
I think today is a good report. Our struggles are not over, and that is why we need the board to take action to give the flexibility necessary to carry out these elections and to be of the best service to the voters that we can be.
The board set up a web page with information and resources for voters affected by the disaster at ncbcs.com/Helene.
On the topic of local elections, Carrboro is ranked in the top 10% of local governments according to a survey that measures resident satisfaction. Carrboro outperformed national averages by more than 20% in racial equity advancement, public works, and police services. Catherine Lazorko attributes satisfaction to high engagement rates from the people who call Carrboro home.
Carrboro residents really engage across social media. They engage by coming to town events. They engage when the town asks them for their opinion and to express their voice.
After gathering data nationwide on local government satisfaction, the ETC Institute, a market research company, gave Carrboro the National Leading the Way Award, recognizing accomplishments in quality of services.
Well, that's the importance of these local elections that we've been talking about all morning.
For sure. But looking outside right now, the sun is certainly something to be happy about in Chapel Hill, isn't it, Megan?
We're seeing great weather here in North Carolina with a high pressure system sitting over us, but Hurricane Milton is headed right towards Florida. And I'll have more on that in just a little bit.
Plus, recovery efforts are still underway in Western North Carolina.
And how one man used buttons to make politics a little more fun. This and more after the break.
Hey y'all, I've decided to quit vaping. I feel so trash right now. Like, I really need my vape. Yeah, I literally cannot sleep. Like, I hope this is worth it. I can't. I know quitting is worth it. 'Cause I'm worth it.
Hello and welcome back to Carolina Week. I'm Anna Catermeyer.
And I'm Isha Patanaik. As Western North Carolina recovers from Helene, donations and power restorations have been a priority as the weather becomes colder. According to Duke Energy, over 57,000 people are still without power in the western part of our state. In Boone, many roads that were washed away have been rebuilt. There have also been thousands of volunteers helping people recover their homes. Volunteers are still needed, and you can help by donating to websites online.
Federal officials are speaking out against misinformation surrounding the response to Hurricane Helene. This comes after former President Trump falsely claimed families affected by Helene can only receive up to $750 in disaster aid. And that money that would have been used to help FEMA instead went towards housing undocumented migrants arriving at the southern border. He even called Helene the worst response to any hurricane in this country.
This is the worst response to a storm or a catastrophe or a hurricane that we've ever seen, ever.
Harris echoed comments by FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. They both said this disinformation can further harm families who have already lost so much due to Helene's destruction.
First of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him, it's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them.
Those who need support can apply for federal aid through any of the methods on screen. Make sure to have your Social Security number, current address, and where you were during the hurricane, as well as a list of damages and your banking and insurance information.
After a three-day strike, dock workers across the East and Gulf Coast are back to work after a deal was reached. The International Longshoremen Association started their strike last week, protesting their pay and lack of automation protection. Workers were seeking higher pay, better benefits, and automation protection, which they claim ocean carriers can afford. The strike ended Friday morning as their main demand was met: increased pay. The deal includes a 10% raise and further raises the longer one is in the union. Kenan Institute chief economist Gerald Cohen says the economy would have suffered if the strike continued for multiple weeks.
We would have seen, if it had lasted a long time, we would have seen bare shelves in some cases, and we would have seen, layoffs.
The strike could continue if the union chooses not to ratify the deal.
Just 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene destroyed the Southeast, Category 4 Hurricane Milton is set to hit Florida later tonight. Milton is projected to hit western Florida the hardest, the same area affected by Hurricane Helene. The storm intensified from a Category 1 to a Category 5 hurricane overnight between Sunday and Monday, and has since been downgraded to a Category 4. The storm has sustained winds of around 155 miles per hour as of 9 a.m., with the highest record gusts around 180. Currently, the storm is not projected to hit North Carolina, with very low chances of rain on the forecast for the remainder of the week. Hopefully, the storm steers clear of North Carolina, and we hope those in Florida can make it through safely.
No, truly, just thinking about those in Florida, hoping they make it out of the state before the storm hits. But right here, we are grateful to have clear skies. I'm so happy the weather is dipping a bit, not too cold, but just right now.
I agree. It's beautiful outside, and we're actually going to go back to Megan, who's got some more with the forecast for the rest of the day and this week.
Thanks, guys. We're seeing temperatures within the 70s today. We're going to peak at 76 by 3 p.m. and just jump back down to the lower 70s by 6 p.m. But if we move a little further south, we're going to see down in Florida, Hurricane Milton is on its way. Hurricane Milton is the 5th strongest Atlantic hurricane to date. It's a Category 5 right now, which means it's got 180 mile per hour sustained winds right now. But as it heads towards Florida, it's projected to slow down to a Category 3. But that can still bring in a lot of storm surge and very high winds. We're going to see storm surge somewhere between 10 to 15 feet. So if you're somewhere in between the Tampa area or most of Florida right now, your best option would be just to try to get out, especially with all the debris that's sitting around from Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Milton is supposed to come in between Wednesday night, early on Thursday morning, and then just dip out right around Friday morning as well. But if we move back up here into North Carolina, we're seeing a high pressure system over us, which is going to bring some lovelier weather here. And then as we move into later this week, on Monday, we're seeing a cold front come through, and that'll bring even more fall-like temperatures for next week. But with fall-like temperatures, we're going to see even less humidity, which is my favorite. We're going to see nice and refreshing humidity levels on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But as we move into the weekend, it's going to jump just a little bit, but not very much. It's going to be pretty not bad, as the muggy reader would say. As we move into the rest of this week, we're going to see on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, mostly sunny skies, and especially on Friday, we might see really sunny skies. As we move into game day and Sunday, temperatures will rise just a little bit. We're seeing higher 70s for your game day. Great tailgate day, by the way. And then on Sunday, we could reach the lower 80s.
As the weather starts to cool down and we get into autumn, Bethany, what's going on in Carolina fall sports?
Yeah, Anna Cater, UNC women's sports are coming into October with fantastic records, with women's soccer only having 1 loss and field hockey being undefeated. It's an exciting time for Carolina athletics, and we'll talk about those teams and more right after the break.
It's been a year of growth. I'm focused, I'm resilient. It's been a rewarding year. All the hours of late night studying, all the hard work, all the breaking bad habits is finally paying off. I'm an athlete. I'm an academic.
Oh my God.
I can be whatever I set my mind to. And I am not my old bad habits.
Welcome back to Carolina Week as we move into mid-October and the leaves start to change colors. Let's hear from Bethany Pryor as she talks all things fall sports.
Thank you, Isha. The weather is cooling off, but Carolina sports teams certainly are not. Let's dive right in with the UNC men's soccer team. Looking to bounce back from their first loss of the season, UNC men's soccer returned to Dorrance Field last night to face off against College of Charleston. 9 minutes in, freshman Tate Johnson got a boot on this cross from Andrew Sheck, netting his first career goal. Later that half, Martine Vichian was there to clean up the leftovers from the initial save and extend the lead to 2. In the second half, Hilly had another great chance right in the front of the net, but was again shut down by the goalkeeper. In the game's dying minutes, Bertil Hansen puts the icing on the cake, tapping one inside the far post to secure a 3-0 win for the Heels. The third-ranked women's soccer team travels to California as the Heels hope to stay atop the conference. The Tar Heels play against ACC newcomer Cal and will look to continue building their momentum as they beat Louisville 5-0 and extended their win streak to 6 last Thursday. The Tar Heels will rely on Kate Fossey to bring the firepower up front as she is second in the ACC with 10 goals. the player ahead of Fosse Cal's Carly Lima, will cause problems for the Carolina defense, as her 13 goals means she's averaging 1 goal a game. To stop her, the UNC defense will have to keep their form. Carolina's 8 clean sheets this season are tied for first in conference. They kick off tomorrow at 7 p.m. This weekend, Carolina men's tennis heads down the road to Cary to compete in the ITA Carolina Regional. Redshirt freshman Anthony Wright battled his way into the qualifying draw just 3 weeks ago in Tulsa at the ITA All-American Championships and won an impressive 6 matches in 6 days. The Heels start play tomorrow. For the second time this season, the UNC field hockey forward Charlie Bruder is the ACC Offensive Player of the Week. In their 2-game trip to the West Coast, Bruder dominated, tallying 4 goals and 2 assists. On Friday, she assisted with the Heels' first goal and then found the back of her net with her own penalty corner shot. She scored all 3 goals in the team's 3-1 win versus Cal, securing the Tar Heels' 6th victory against a ranked opponent this season. The sophomore's impressive performance solidifies her reputation as one of the top offensive threats in the ACC. Now, Tar Heel ice hockey is coming off a 2-win weekend, making their season record 6-3-1. Riding high from an overtime victory against Rider on Saturday, today the team will play a non-conference game against Duke. The 2 teams are coming together to play in a charity game, partnering with Zeta Tau Alpha to help raise money to fight breast cancer. In last year's Think Pink game, UNC walked away with a 15-4 win, and the team raised more than $1,300 in support of breast cancer research. Make sure you tune in to Sports Extra on Friday for a look ahead to a big weekend in Carolina sports. For now, more Carolina Week. We'll be right back after this.
Wait, have y'all seen the new episode of Love Island?
No, we need to put it on now.
I know. I don't want to see any spoilers on Twitter.
Is that blue raz? Can I get a hit? I normally get guava ice, but this is hitting.
I'm gonna go outside and get some air.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. Now this week we focused a lot on the serious topics like registering to vote and the issues driving the election.
But what about when politics can be fun? Our Humsney Sivakumar tells us about a new collection at Wilson Library that shows us a glimpse of elections from the past.
A month before the election, campaign memorabilia everywhere, including the Wilson Library. The library recently received a collection of hundreds of 1960s and 70s election campaign memorabilia, buttons, medallions, and even cufflinks.
Oh, this is such a great snapshot of politics in the late 20th century.
It was donated by North Carolina native Judson Davis, who collected these items over the years while taking part in campaigns.
Davis calls himself a political person, and it's a family business. His grandfather was the head of the Federal Reserve Board under Roosevelt. The collection itself, however, was mostly a hobby.
Back in the 60s, participating in politics was fun. It was enjoyable. It was a good thing to do.
Christian Edwards, assistant keeper at the Wilson Library Museum, is tasked with cataloging the massive collection.
And we are currently up to number 737 for this pinback. We have quite a few more to go. Once we get all the pinback buttons cataloged, we will then be able to jump into the other fascinating items he was able to collect.
One thing that's caught our eye in particular is how the candidates may change, but the campaign messaging is similar.
The American political system is long. The history, the changes that have come about will continue to change. And as long as we are all active participants, then we can help shepherd our country the way we hope it becomes.
The goal is to have the collection cataloged in the online Wilson Library archive by the end of the year. Once completed, you'll be able to make an appointment to view the items. The items, Davis says, symbolize a time in politics when candidates actively tried to fix things instead of just talking.
Government can solve problems, or it can sit there and bicker. And for quite a number of years, it has been bickering. And now we just need to stop and go forward. Oh, that's the big thing is politics is the art of the possible.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Humsini Sivakumar.
Well, that is so cool. I never thought about election buttons and just learning history from them, especially the Jimmy Carter one. I heard it was just his 100th birthday a couple weeks ago or so. So yeah, do you collect anything? Anything like buttons or?
I mean, probably not as cool as that, but probably some historical context. I love to collect my family's jewelry that's passed on. So I always wear a necklace. That was my great-grandmother's.
Oh.
What about you? Do you collect anything?
I do. Me and my brother collect keychains from everywhere we've been. So we just get a little keychain. We have like this huge collection already, so I might have to transfer it out. I don't really know where it is. I've been trying to look for it. I think it's in my closet, but I need to go home and find it. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and make sure to tune in tomorrow morning at 9 for Rise and Shine.